Uh, we're in Exodus chapter 2. Last week we saw that it was the midwives disobeying Pharaoh. Now, most of us don't realize, being Americans, what the kind of power that Pharaoh had. Pharaoh was considered to be God on earth. He had godlike authority. Anything he said was meant to happen. Okay? And so when he told the midwives to kill the male Hebrew children, to disobey him blatantly was simply asking for a death penalty. Okay? So the women refused to obey Pharaoh, and they kept the male children alive. And that was a very heroic act. Now, they lied to him about what was going on, which was smart. Okay? And remember, if a lie is for the preservation of life, it's a righteous act. Okay, I always loved Corrie ten Boom. She struggled with things the way I do. You know, I really don't like to lie at all. Okay, and when the Nazis came and they asked, "Where are the Jews? We know you have Jews in your house. Where are they?" Well, they were in the basement, but there was a kitchen table on the first floor. She said, "They're under the table." They looked under the table and knew that she was making fun of them. Okay, but it was true. They were under the table.
Yeah.
Just a lot further under the table than, you know. So she lied without lying, which I think is a great way to do it. Stuart.
Just like Rosa Parks, she sat in the front of the bus for the first time and she went to jail for 30 days. She got punished for sitting in the front of the bus. So
That has nothing to do with lying.
no, that has to do with what they disobeyed the orders that Pharaoh gave her.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't seen the movie Harriet, about Harriet Tubman, I strongly recommend it. I'm waiting to get it on DVD. I might bring it in and do it in the second hour. By the way, we will finish up. If Melanie can, and our technical crew, can get the TV to work and pick up where the movie left off last week, we're watching Unplanned.
Thank you.
And we will continue it today, provided we have the proper technical support. Okay, getting into chapter 2 now. Now, a man from the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got him a wicker basket and covered it over with tar and pitch. Then she put the child into it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to find out what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the Nile, and her maidens walking along the side of the Nile. And she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid, and she brought it to her. When she opened it, she said she saw the child, and behold, the boy was crying. And she had pity on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go ahead." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. The child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she named him Moses, and said, "Because I drew him out of the water." Every actor is a woman.
Every what?
Actor.
Actor.
Okay,
Player,
you've got
participant.
mom hiding her child for 3 months. Seems like a rather natural thing to do. I guess at 3 months he got loud enough that the neighbors all knew he was there, so she went and put him in a basket and hid him in the river. But she did not abandon him there. She left Miriam to keep an eye on the basket, see what happens to it. Okay, again, another woman. Now, when you hide the basket among the reeds, you have to realize she didn't shove this basket out in the river to float away. She hid it near the bank where the current wasn't going to catch it. And then Miriam stays to watch it to see what's going to happen. Okay, your next actor is Pharaoh's daughter. woman. And she becomes the central hero right here because she rescues him and gives him a home and adopts him as her son. Okay, but then here comes Miriam again. She goes up to Pharaoh's daughter and says, would you like me to go get a wet nurse for her, for the baby? Oh, good idea. I know just the lady, his mom. Let me take him back to mom. But she doesn't tell Pharaoh's daughter that. Okay, she just says, I know a lady who will take care of this job for you. Okay, now mom not only gets Moses back, she gets paid to take care of him. Okay?
But the interesting part is that Pharaoh's daughter knew it was a Jewish child.
Hebrew.
Hebrew, all right, Hebrew child who was obviously going totally against her father's wishes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sounds like a rebellious teenager to me.
Oh, we don't know how old she was.
Well, I'm just saying, that's usually what they
It's
have.
always possible that she was barren and therefore
Yes,
getting a
that's
child
what
was a
I'm
good thing.
thinking. She wanted a child.
Okay.
That's what
But-
Cecil B. DeMille said. She was a widow
Or she
and
could
her
have just been
husband.
compassionate.
She had prayed to their God for a son.
But the thing is, it says that she took pity on him.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the main.
She wasn't going to go along with the program of just kill babies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little
So,
did she
She was
know.
pro-life. What do you know?
yeah. Okay, so again, all of the heroes in this story are women. Okay? And you know, sometimes I like to think back to, if any of y'all have seen The Hobbit. You've got
Yeah.
two wizards. One thinks that only great, powerful beings make a difference. And the other one says, no, I think it's the little things, the tiny acts of kindness, the thank you, the holding a door, the small, gentle things that people do. It's the real power. And of course, the hero of the story is a hobbit who's only half as tall as a human being and are about as ferocious as, puppies. Okay. A lot of times it really is the little things, a little tiny thoughtful gift that will lift someone up. Some people have money and great power, and quite often they don't do anything. Okay, but the little things matter. And most of us can't do the big things. Okay, how many, in Corinthians it says, not many rich, not many noble are called, which caused Queen Elizabeth to say, I thank God for the M's in Scripture. The letter M. Because it says not many and not any. It doesn't say not any are called, just not many. Okay, and let's face it, Queen of England, yeah, she kind of had some, she had some
Extra
clout,
money.
you know. So she was happy that she was called. Okay. Let's go on from there, starting again in verse 11. Now it came about in those days when Moses had grown up that he went out to his brethren and looked on their hard labors. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that, and when he saw there was no one around, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. He went out the next day, and behold, two Hebrews were fighting with each other. And he said to the offender, why are you striking your companion? But he said, who made you a prince or judge over us? Are you intending to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and said, surely the matter has become known. Okay. When it says he looked this way and that way and didn't see anybody, there's one person that's not being included.
Right.
That's the guy he's saving. The guy he saved was there. Carol.
Well, what caught my eye was his brethren. How did he know he was Hebrew?
There are several ways that could happen. One, mom might have told him. And remember, her maids were with her also. Okay, the maids that went out and fetched the baby out of the river. Because let's face it, Pharaoh's daughter didn't go tromping into the mud. The maids did. So this is known by more than just one person. Also, the fact that he was circumcised.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Didn't
Okay.
they get circumcised when they were in the desert?
They're not in the desert, they're in Egypt.
No, I'm saying, didn't they they had to go back and do a whole generation because nobody was circumcised?
Moses seems to be the one who reinstitutes circumcision because God tells him to.
Yeah.
But, and this may just be tradition. Supposedly, the tribe of Levi kept the traditions. Okay?
The priests.
Well, it's the priestly tribe.
Yeah.
But, and if you remember, who stands up for Yahweh at the golden calf incident? It's the tribe of Levi.
The priests.
Okay, it's the priestly tribe, yes. They aren't the priestly tribe yet. They wind up becoming the priestly tribe after the golden calf incident. Because prior to that, who were going to be the priests? The firstborn.
That's right.
Okay, but when Israel rebelled in the golden calf, then Levi gets made the priestly tribe. Maybe because of all the precursor obedience, okay, and their loyalty to Yahweh. So Moses may very well have been circumcised, although I don't know for a fact that that was true. But when it came to circumcising his son, evidently Zipporah was against it, and Moses almost died because he wasn't being obedient. Okay, but those are some of the indications. I mean, like you know, when they say the walls have ears, well, that's very true of the palace. Everybody's listening to try and find out everybody else's secrets. Okay, so if you have Pharaoh's daughter and her handmaids and know this is a Hebrew baby, if they ever talk about it, someone's going to overhear. Okay, so I dare say Moses at some point came to realize that he was a Hebrew and he went out to see what was going on with his brethren. Okay, he doesn't like what he sees.
I forgot about circumcision.
And when one of the Egyptians goes to beat one, he kills him. Okay, he's getting a little bit high-handed there, but remember, he was raised in the palace.
Right.
Now, a lot of people try and take this and say, well, he was being set up to be the next Pharaoh. Maybe, maybe not. But he grew up in the palace with a lot of privilege. And with privilege, you tend to get freer with what you do than if you are a flunky on the road. Okay, so he feels free to kill this Egyptian in hiding, but he doesn't take into account that the guy he just saved has a big mouth. Sometimes your strongest advocates can be your worst enemies in practicality. You know,
That's never really what
You
to
know.
say either.
you go out of your way to help someone with money, and they go around and tell everybody, hey, you know what Bruce did? Bruce gave me the $100 I needed to fix my car. All of a sudden you have a bunch of people going, hey, Bruce, you know, I need $100 too. Well, I only had the 100, you know.
Yeah.
But here, one Hebrew gets saved
Oy.
by Moses saving him, and he goes telling people, oh yeah, Moses came up and did this for me. Well, now they've got an axe to use against him. Okay. Of course, it's all in God's plan. Carol, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, he was raised in the palace, so he would have been given the right of an Egyptian over the Hebrews, even though he was Hebrew. And so I can't figure, this part gives me a little bit of confusion, because he shouldn't have been afraid of anything, because his adopted mother is Pharaoh's daughter. So, I mean, he shouldn't have been afraid, because he could have just decided, but he didn't.
We'll get to that when we get to the
Yeah, I know.
Hebrews. He walks out on the palace.
I know.
Okay. He gives up all that privilege. So it looks like he's going down and maybe joining with his Hebrew brothers. Now, I don't know if he's slogging around in the mud pits and stuff, but he's disassociated himself from the palace. So whatever protection he had, being Pharaoh's daughter, is now gone. Okay. I want to take a look at Luke chapter 12.
Luke.
Yeah, Luke. Hold your place there, though. We'll come back. Luke chapter 12 and starting in verse 13. I think Yeshua is making a point here. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brothers to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who appointed me a judge and an arbiter over you?" Then he said to them, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of greed. For not even when one has abundance does his life consist of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man was very productive. And he began reasoning to himself, saying, 'What shall I do, since I have no place to store my crops?' Then he said, 'This is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your soul is required of you. And now who will own what you have prepared? So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.'" Okay, I think he's playing back to Moses. Because the Hebrew says to him, you know, "Who made you a judge of us?" Well, Yeshua is now asking the question, "Who made me the judge?" Okay, and he goes on to explain about worldly wealth. Moses' choice was, "I'm going to walk out on the riches of Egypt and join my Hebrew brethren." Okay, because a man's life does not exist in the things he owns. Okay, and exists in a relationship with God. What should the landowner have done here?
Should have shared with the poor.
Yes, he should have shared.
Well, it
Okay,
always made me mad that he tore that barn down. He could have used it for something else, like letting people live in it. I mean, why tear it down? You know, it's gonna cost more to tear it down and build a new one. So build a new one.
look, when I went through real estate appraisal school, you'd be amazed at the things people do.
Yeah.
They'll tear down an 8-year-old hotel because it's 8 years old. It's old. Tear it down and build a new one. It's bigger and better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, the rich do not think the way we on the ground think. You know, they're way high up here and they're figuring out profit margins. But be that as it may. And I'd also like to take a look at Hebrews chapter 11. Now, you all know Hebrews is 11 is the faith chapter,
Yep.
the heroes of the
One of
faith.
my favorite.
First,
23.
thank you.
Well, I'm still finding Hebrews, so.
Hebrews what?
11:23.
11:23.
Ah, there it is. I knew it was in here. Dry fingers on dry paper. That's one of the things about winter. You can't find it hard to turn a page. So starting in verse 23. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Okay. Not afraid in the sense that they just were willing to disobey him. They finally realized they had to do something. So
10:03.
by faith, they saved his life. Verse 24. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Okay. Think through that a little bit from what I said before. Who is Pharaoh supposed to be?
God.
He's supposed to be Ra, incarnate. Who would that make Moses?
God's son.
It would make him the grandson of Ra. Okay. He refuses to take up that mantle. Okay. He also won't deny who he really is. Okay, then going on to verse 25. Choosing rather to endure ill treatment with the people of God than enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. Okay, so maybe he was working in the mud pits with them, because it says he's going to be ill treated with them. Considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking for looking to the reward. Now this is interesting. We've been talking lately about, is the Messiah Yahweh or not? Well, Christ, Messiah, what did Moses know about Christ? He knew about,
Nothing.
he would know about Yahweh. He wouldn't know about the earthly visitation of the Messiah. So, if Christ is Yahweh incarnate, then this statement makes perfect sense. He chose Yahweh over the riches of Egypt. He chose Yahweh over Ra and all the earthly power they had. Because he was looking to the reward. Now, do you think he was looking forward to an earthly reward?
No.
I don't think so. It's like on Wednesday night we talked about the 23rd Psalm. David ends it with, "And I shall dwell in the house of Yahweh forever." He doesn't think his life ends when he dies. He's going to dwell in the house of Yahweh forever. Okay? Moses apparently believes in life after death. He believes in an eternal reward. Okay, we know that Daniel 12 ends up with the resurrection. And when Yeshua is asked the question about the resurrection, what does he say? When Yahweh is talking with Moses, God says, "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Not I was. They've been dead for 400 years. Not I was their God, I am their God, implying that they are still alive. Not implying, saying it outright.
I notice here that Moses' daddy was given credit for saving him here in this book of the Bible.
Well, it says his parents.
Parents, yeah.
His parents had
And
faith.
daddy didn't have anything to do with it according to Exodus.
Well, he's not mentioned.
Right. But I
But-
think it's interesting that the New Testament is more male-oriented than female-oriented.
I would tend to disagree with that a little bit
Yeah.
when you consider the genealogy of Matthew. Okay, because he does something very unusual. He includes 5 women in that genealogy.
Ah.
Not something, you go back to Genesis, how many women are mentioned in the genealogy? None that I remember. Okay, but 5 women are in the Messiah's genealogy, and they're heroes of the faith.
At least 2 of them are Gentiles.
Okay, maybe more.
Yeah.
Verse 27, "By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is unseen." Okay, just because you know that the king is going to kill you doesn't mean you're afraid of him, but you know it's time to go. Sometimes God sends signals. It doesn't mean that he's afraid of the king. And having been a prince in the palace and traveled all over Egypt, do you think Moses knew how to get out of Egypt without being seen?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Especially if he was a military man that a lot of people think he was. Okay, he could have walked out, he knew how to do it. So he didn't have to be afraid of the king, but it was time to go.
Well, they weren't looking for him either.
Well, they would be in a moment.
Right, that's why he's scattered.
Okay, by faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, so that he who destroyed the firstborn would not touch them. Again, God says, I want you to do something ridiculous. I want you to kill a lamb and put the blood on the doorpost of your house. And then when the destroyer comes to kill the firstborn, I won't come to you. Yeah, okay. Kill a lamb and put the blood around my door. That makes a lot of sense. But he did it.
Yeah.
Just like Naaman the Syrian, when he was told to go dip himself in the river to get rid of his leprosy. He thought it was a dumb idea. And his servant counseled him, he says, well, you know, if he told you to do something hard where you would have earned it, you'd have done it, right? Well, yeah. Well, if he told you something simple, why not just go do it? Faith in Christ. You're not being saved by your good works. You are putting your faith in someone else to save you, in spite of the fact that you have been unjust and sinful in your life. And then told to accept that God is going to save you because of this simple Stupid, simple act. Believe in him, and it will save you. Oh, okay, I can go along with that.
I think he had such blind faith that whatever the vision or whatever said to him to do, he would just automatically do it. Because he, I think, perceived that it was coming from Yeshua. So I
Okay.
think he would have just done it anyway.
And by faith they passed through the Red Sea as though they were passing through dry land, and the Egyptians, when they attempted it, were drowned. Okay, now here's another one of those ones. I want you to go out and hit the water with your staff, and it's going to part. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a big.
right. It's a shame Bill Cosby never took that one up. Anyway, getting back to Exodus chapter 2. I'm picking up from verse 15. It says, when Pharaoh heard of this matter, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the presence of Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water, filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, why have you come back so soon today? So they said, an Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and what is more, he even drew the water for us and watered the flock. And he said to his daughters, where is he then? Why is it that you have left a man behind? Invite him to have something to eat. Moses was willing to dwell with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses. Then she gave him a son, and he named his son Gershom, for he said, I have been a sojourner in a foreign land. And something I finally realized last night, these shepherds, you see in the movie they always show the well being stopped up, and the women can't get the stone out of the well. But what it says is, the women went to the well, they drew the water, they put it in the trough for the sheep, then the shepherds came and drove them away. They waited for the women to do the work, then they cheated them out of the rewards of their work. Okay, and Moses comes up and goes, no. And he chases the shepherds away, and then he draws the water for the women. There's a character difference there. Okay, he defends women, and he does work that helps. Okay, and of course, Reuel, when the girls get home, he goes, why are you home so soon? Because he knows this routine. Okay, he's suffering from this oppression. Okay, evidently priests didn't gain a lot of respect in that day. Their daughters got cheated just like everybody else. And he's looking at the girls going, you left him behind? You know, I can just say, what's wrong with you? Go get him. He's a good guy.
You want to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, he might be gone tomorrow. Okay, and then he gives him Zipporah to be a wife, which was, we don't know how much, we know in the end that's not a great blessing, but it might have been in the beginning. Then
That's what
verse
happens
23.
when you go to the well. You gotta watch out if you're a single man and you go to the well.
Why?
Because that's where romance happens in the Bible. Every romance that happens in the Bible happens at the well.
Go to a well.
Okay.
Well, it's 'cause it's a social place.
Congregation.
Verse 23, now it came about in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the sons of Israel sighed because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry for help because of their bondage rose up to God. So God heard the groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God saw the sons of Israel, and God took notice of them. Notice that he remembered his covenant and took notice of them when they took notice of him.
Yes.
Now they started out well under Joseph, but if you remember, the tribes, except for Joseph, were all scattering, going their own way. There would have been no Israel if Joseph hadn't gone to Egypt, and if God hadn't brought a plague and put them under Joseph's leadership. There would have been no Israel. They would have all in different directions because they had no concept of the covenant. Okay? But they did have a memory. Remember, Joseph's bones were there, saying as a sign, God will take you out. And we covered that promise, a week or two ago. Okay, they knew there was a promise, they just didn't believe it. And finally, when things got bad enough, they turned to God and said, save us. And that's when God took note of their suffering. If you don't turn to God, God will let you go your own way.
Yep.
Okay, and when you go your own way, guess what you get? The consequences of going your own way. Okay, and those are quite often not good.